folks. So we're going to get started here, and we're going to do this as best as we possibly can. So thank you very, very much for being here. And thank you to all the schools who are joining us today. So in our audience, we have American University, Columbus School of Law at Catholic University of America, St. John's University School of Law, Touro College, Jacob D. Feshberg Law Center, University of Maryland, Drexel University, and the University of the District of Columbia. So welcome to everybody, and thank you very much for being here. As you may have noticed as we were discussing, we do have some high winds and power outages that might be going on around here. So if you lose any of us, it's because we are enduring a storm. So my name is Ryan Vicinage, and I am the Chief of Organizational Development and Training for the New Jersey Courts, and a warm welcome to all the law students from all the schools that I just mentioned, as well as Howard University, which I'm just receiving a message that we have some esteemed colleagues from Howard University joining us as well. Thank you for being here. And we know that this is a busy time of year for a lot of folks, so we want to make sure that we do this the right way and keep your attention as best as we can. And that way you can get a little bit of an understanding about the law clerkship program we run here in New Jersey. So I told you who I am. I am going to be your moderator for the day, but I have not had the opportunity to let you know about my esteemed panelists, but know that there will be 3 judges from diverse backgrounds and 1 law clerk who you will learn a little bit of information from about this law clerkship program. And what we're going to do is we are going to go through a few questions that we have for these judges and talk a little bit about what their experiences with the law clerkship program have been, as well as a current law clerk's program and what she has experienced along the way. And we ask you to participate in the conversation, participate in the discussion, submit questions. We'll answer some of them along the way, but some of them we want to make sure we bring into the space and ask the judges directly. So please be a part of this process as much as you possibly can. And we're hoping for this to not go longer than an hour. We'll try to honor that time period as much as we can because the time of everybody in this room is going to be very valuable to us. So let me just give you a little brief rundown about the New Jersey court system and why you might want to join such an esteemed program here in New Jersey. So New Jersey's court system is recognized and respected nationally for our progressive and innovative work. Additionally, we have an advanced information technology infrastructure that has enabled us to continue the critical work of the courts and to make sure that we are doing so despite the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, it took us 3 days, only 3 days, to convert all of our in-person court systems into virtual court systems. And we made sure that we did that in a way that impacted our court users as little as possible. Also, did you know that we have the largest state law clerkship program in the nation? Each year our judges hire approximately 480 law clerks statewide. And our panelists are here today to describe the critical work of the judicial clerks and to give you information on the application and hiring process. So let me introduce you to our esteemed panel of judicial representatives as well as 1 law clerk. So representing the Burlington Vicinage, we have the Honorable Judge Aimee Belgard. Judge Belgard, can you say hello? Did we lose Judge Belgard? I think we might have. We'll continue to trudge on, though, with the Honorable Judge Francisco Dominguez from the Camden Vicinage. Judge Dominguez, can you say hello?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Representing the Hudson Vicinage, we have the Honorable Judge Martha Mainor. Judge Mainor, are you still with us?
I am with you. Good afternoon. And by the way, I did not approve that photograph.
Fair enough. We'll make sure to get that updated for you. And finally, we have our law clerk representative, Melanie Franco, who is representing the central office in Trenton, as well as Pace Law. Melanie, can you say hello?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask that each of our esteemed colleagues represents themselves in the way that they choose. So if you could just give us a little personal interview or overview of who you are and what you represent, and a little bit about your background. We'll start with Judge Dominguez, and we'll work our way through. Judge Dominguez, can you take us through your background?
Sure. Again, thanks for having me. And the storm outside here seems to be settling down a little bit, so I hope my power stays on and I can continue to be with you the rest of the afternoon. I got my law degree from Rutgers Law School. Got my undergraduate, from Montclair State University. My law degree from Rutgers Law School. I also have a master's in public policy from Rutgers University, and I was a graduate fellow at the Eagleton Institute of Politics out of Rutgers as well. I spent about 20 years in Trenton, New Jersey, the capital of New Jersey, working in various government agencies, starting with the Attorney General's office. I was a Deputy Attorney General working on legislative issues for the Attorney General, moved around to some other state agencies. And then my last two positions were within the legislature itself. So I worked for the Assembly, which is our lower house, as well as the Senate, which is our upper house. I was deputy counsel for partisan staff down in the Assembly. And then I was chief counsel for a partisan office up in the Senate. For the last 10 of those years, I was the partisan counsel for the Law and Public Safety and the Judiciary committees. So much of the work that I was doing centered around criminal laws and our criminal code, and providing legal advice to the members just generally, and for the office itself generally. I've now been in the Camden Vicinage for this is going on to year 5. I'll be starting year 5 soon. I spent my first 2 years in the civil division and have spent my last 2 years now in the criminal division, which is something, obviously, based on my background that I just talked about, is something that I'm much more familiar with. The criminal code is an area that I feel much more comfortable with. But yeah, that's my career.
Thank you very much, Judge Dominguez, and I appreciate your remarks here, especially as a representative of Camden County myself. Good to be under your chair. So let's go to Judge Mainor. Judge Mainor, can you introduce yourself to us?
Yes, please. My name is Martha Mainor, and I am a Jersey girl through and through, born and raised in New Jersey, and a public servant through and through. I am a graduate of Seton Hall Undergraduate School, Seton Hall University School of Law in New Jersey. I left law school after graduating to become a law clerk for the Honorable Betty J. Lester, presiding criminal judge in Essex County, after which I worked as a prosecutor in the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. I left the prosecutor's office and went to the Office of the Public Defender. I've worked and supervised in 5 counties over the state of New Jersey in the Public Defender's Office in a variety of positions as an assistant deputy public defender, the drug court attorney for the Public Defender's Office, a first assistant public defender, which is in essence an assistant manager, and then a deputy public defender over 3 different counties between Burlington, Union, and Hudson County until I was appointed to the bench in 2011. Since that time, I have served in the landlord-tenant court for 1 year, special civil and civil court for 2 years, criminal court for 2 years, and now I have been in the family division hearing domestic violence, child support custody, and parenting time, and now primarily juvenile work. I am a mom and a wife, and I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Judge Mainor. I really appreciate the thoughts there and your varied experience along the way. That'll be very helpful in this conversation for sure. And finally, we have our current law clerk, Melanie Franco. Can you give us a little bit of an understanding of your experience and where you've come from?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Melanie Franco. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, but then went to Pace Law School in White Plains, New York. where I graduated last year in 2019. I'm currently clerking for Judge Joan Bedrin Murray of the New Jersey Tax Court, who is also currently assigned to the Bergen Vicinage Chancery Division. So we're actually in Bergen County right now. And yeah, I'm having a great time.
Very good. Thank you very much. So let's get into the conversation. Let's start to ask some questions that people are here to listen to. So I'm going to start with Judge Dominguez, and then I'm going to ask each of our panelists to jump in at different points to talk about different parts of the, the clerkship experience and what it's all about. So Judge Dominguez, can you tell us what it's like to work as a judicial clerk in the New Jersey court system from your perspective as somebody who oversees the clerks?
Well, I think it's a very exciting place to work. You certainly have a wide variety of subject matters that you could be dealing with, depending on which division. So people understand, we have basically 3 divisions. We've got the family division, the criminal division, and the civil division. So depending on which specific division you're working in, you could have various subject matters that you're dealing with. And I say that mainly thinking about the civil division. Obviously, the criminal division, you're dealing with crimes and our criminal code. The family division expands it a little bit more. You're dealing, obviously, with family issues, child issues, divorce issues, those types of things. When you get to civil, essentially civil is everything else. So anything that dealing with your typical car accident, fender bender, to a contract matter, to an employment matter, to an employment discrimination matter, to land use. Essentially anything else falls into the civil division. So if you are a civil clerk, civil law clerk, you could be working on any number of subject matters during the course of your year here. I think it becomes a little bit more concentrated again in the other divisions, just as far as subject matter goes. But the civil division, again, is everything that you can possibly think of. And so I think that's exciting for many people. They have an opportunity to work on any number of issues that they may be, particularly interested in, and you never know what the type of motion is that's going to be filed by the parties. Our law clerks here, that from my perspective, that is their main responsibility, is to handle the motions and to help the judges work through their motions that get filed in their particular chambers. So if you're a clerk, you're researching, you're reading the motions, understanding sort of substantively what the motion is about. You're doing the legal research that the parties may cite to, or that the judge may ask you to do in order to get the information that the judge may need. You're writing memos to help the judge, and oftentimes you're maybe helping the judge write the opinion if there's going to be a written opinion. So I think the duties are various depending on, again, which specific division that you're in. And the subject matter can be various as well. So I think that's exciting to a lot of people, that they can have their hands in many different things.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much for your remarks there. Melanie, can you give us a little bit of an understanding from your perspective what it's like to work in a judicial clerkship for the New Jersey courts?
Of course, Judge Dominguez definitely gave a great overview. I would say the first job as a clerk is helping the judge and making sure the judge knows each case backwards and forwards. I do take a first look at each motion, and I would say the first step is looking for procedural deficiencies before going into the substance. We are the liaison between the judge and the attorneys. So being a clerk also means speaking with attorneys and communicating regarding motions, trials, or even just conferences. So the clerk is really that first person that the attorneys will go to before they get to the judge, other than, speaking to secretaries or other clerks. And so, I do a lot of legal research and writing, as the judge said, as well as, just working with my judge to make sure that, we know everything there is about a particular motion or case before any parties come before the court.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Judge Mainor, I'd like to get you in on this conversation as well. So can you give us an understanding of how the clerks interact with you and with your office, and what are your expectations for law clerks?
As indicated by both the law clerk and Judge Dominguez, the clerkship, for the most part, has its general items that are the same, irrespective of what judge you work for. However, a clerkship is certainly tweaked and can be distinctive depending on the judge that you work for. I, for one, believe that I should take in a law clerk, and that law clerk should walk out of my door better than they walked in. Prepared as an attorney, prepared as a civil servant, understanding the roles and responsibilities of the courts, learning not only the legal research and writing and how to communicate with attorneys and other paraprofessionals and things of that nature, but also understanding the roles and responsibilities of each of the people who work for the judiciary. I think that that's integral, because when you become an attorney, understanding how to get into promise gavel, what is it that the clerk is looking into the systems, how they are operating those systems, where a person files a motion, how long it takes for that process to occur and for it to actually reach the judge. So my expectations for my law clerk are not just with regards to legal research and writing, but also to work closely with the secretary, the court clerk, the team leaders, the customer service departments, so that they understand just the practical things. Where are things located in the building? Who does what? How long does it take for each of those things to be accomplished? All of those things, I think, help develop a law clerk. My law clerk personally works very closely with me. I have an open door policy. I do believe that we should be framing the minds of our law clerks. So I believe in discussing the briefs and the motions that they prepare for me, the bench memos. So we discuss the law. I go through and read their bench memo prior to the proceedings, and I ask them questions with regards to how they arrived at that conclusion, make sure that they understand certain things when we have time. Obviously, we can't do that on every motion because of the timeframes with which we are constrained. But when there's a novel issue or a very interesting issue, or there are nuances, I talk to them just so that I can get their brains moving and help them understand how they should be thinking. They also do mediation in the Hudson County Superior Court, and I believe most of the courts across our state, they do mediation, especially in family court. They get deeply involved with regards to the mediation of parenting time. They mediate with regards to other cases that are occurring in family court. And they also coordinate the calendar, especially now with regards to our post-COVID clerkships. They are doing a lot more things that they wouldn't have necessarily had to do because of the fact that we're working virtually. So they are assisting the clerks and the secretaries with making sure that the calendars are organized, making sure the contact for individuals is accurate, making sure that the litigants know to make themselves available and be aware that they need to download either Zoom or Teams or be available by telephone, depending on how we're operating. So those are some of the things that I expect and how I work with my clerk.
Very good. And you started to mention a little bit about how some of these changes have come across the last 3 months or so as we've shifted to the work from home order. So let me ask this to Judge Dominguez and get your perspective on it. How do you feel like the remote work due to COVID-19 has impacted the work of a judicial clerk. And specifically, can you touch a little bit on the technological sophistication of the New Jersey courts and maybe some challenges and opportunities we've run into?
Sure. Well, I think from a certain perspective, it may have actually helped the law clerks because they're not in the chambers getting inundated with phone calls and interruptions and those types of things as frequently while they're home as they do when they're actually in chambers. So to a certain extent, I think maybe some of the law clerks have appreciated being able to be home and concentrate on their work hopefully in a quieter setting. I think from my perspective, I know with my clerk that I have right now, it's been seamless. She has been able to access every electronic resource that she would normally have while she was sitting in chambers. The Judiciary has provided a mechanism for her to access Lexis and other electronic research sources. Judge Mainor had mentioned Promise Gavel, which if you're not here from New Jersey, you may not be familiar. It's a computer system that tracks criminal matters, and my law clerk has been able to access all of those various databases that she would normally have at her desktop computer in her chamber. She's been able to access them from her home computer, and she's been using her own personal computer. She was more comfortable using that because it was just something she was used to every day. And she said, "Judge, I can just use my own computer, and it will take me half the amount of time to learn everything if I just use my own computer." But frankly, I've found it to be seamless. Anything any documents then that she prepares, she'll email them to me. I've been able to review them. I can mark them up and send them back to her. A small challenge, I would think, possibly maybe because I sit in the criminal division right now. Oftentimes we get letters from inmates, either that are in the jail or in state prison. And they physically, write a letter where they write it out and they put it in the mail and they mail it to us. It's just been somewhat of a challenge being able to receive that mail. The way the process has to work now is someone physically that's in the courthouse has to open the mail. They have to make a determination as to where that mail has to go. If it needs to come to me, then it gets scanned and then it gets sent to my law clerk, and my law clerk can review it, electronically. But I think that's from on the criminal end, that's maybe the only sort of limitation that I've found, and even that has not been, something that we haven't been able to overcome. Like I just explained, the mail just gets scanned. It takes a little bit longer for us to be able to address those issues, and then especially the response back when I'll write the response, or my law clerk will write the response, I'll approve it, and then it has to go back to a staff member that's physically in the courthouse and then sent back to the inmate that's in whatever facility the inmate is in. But otherwise, everything has been fairly seamless. My law clerk will sit in on remote proceedings, whether it's a motion or sentencings or regular conferences. In fact, I just had a conference this morning with 2 attorneys, and I knew there on a particular motion, I knew there was going to be some scheduling questions. So I had my law clerk sit in on it because she's the one that's controlling the motion calendar. She's certainly much more familiar with what is scheduled on what particular days. And it was seamless. It was as if we were all sitting in the same room.
Very good. Melanie, how do you feel like your experience has changed across the last 3 months when comparing to how you were experiencing your clerkship prior?
I will say that Judge Dominguez is right. It's a little less hectic working from home, but it hasn't changed too much. We still make phone calls. We still are able to conduct all of our regular hearings and conferences. We the way that in Bergen County, our Chancery Division, we're on a rotating schedule. So we do go into the courthouse every now and then. But when I'm home, I'm able to access all of my documents, do all of my work. I'm still in constant communication with my judge and our secretary, as well as, you know, our filing team and the tax court management office for both sides. So it hasn't changed too much, just, you know, being able to explain how Zoom and Microsoft Teams works to attorneys has been probably the biggest change. But other than that, you know, I've picked up a little bit more of the scheduling and things like that. But in general, you know, I'm still doing the same work, just in a different location. So it's not too much of a difference. I think that if this were to continue, clerks will still gain the necessary skills and learn more and more you know, every day, even if we have to continue to do this from home, just because technology allows us to be in that constant communication, and, you know, we're able to still conduct proceedings as normal. You know, I'm not in the criminal division, so we don't have a lot of the same issues, and, you know, we don't conduct jury trials, so that it's been slightly easier for us in terms of switching to remote proceedings.
Very good, very good. I'll encourage our audience to get involved and to continue to be a part of the conversation in the Q&A function. So, Kevin, do we have any questions that at this time our judges can answer from our audience?
One question I did receive: how would a summer judicial internship differ from a year-long judicial clerkship?
Excellent. Any perspectives on that from either of the judges?
I know myself, while I've been in the criminal division, I haven't taken on any summer law clerks for several reasons. One of them, when we were in the courthouse, physically in my chambers, I don't have space to have another staff person in my chambers. There isn't a desk, there isn't anywhere for that person to physically be. The second part of that, while in the criminal division, although the motions can be a significant amount of work on a substantive level, the volume compared to the civil division is significantly less. When I was in the civil division, I always took on a summer intern. And I should also point out, summer interns are unpaid. It's an unpaid position versus a judicial law clerk, which certainly is a paid position. It's a full-time position, whereas the interns, it's obviously just for the summer and it's unpaid. But I always took on a summer intern, and I had started to get into a cycle of moving my intern then into the judicial law clerk position. Oftentimes the person that came and was in my chambers for the summer, by the time they got back in school, they recognized the value of the clerkship, and they said, well, you know what, you know, having watched the law clerk that was there at the time, and they said, yeah, I would like to pursue the clerkship now. And it was actually working out very well, because as an intern, they were essentially assisting my law clerk. So they were involved in the motions as well. They may have handled the more routine type of, say, discovery motions and things like that, whereas the law clerk sort of got into more of the substantive summary judgment motions. But as the summer went on and the intern got more experience, we certainly, you know, would let them work on some of the more substantive motions. But they had that opportunity to sort of get a flavor of what the clerkship was like. And I think that was attractive to them. And then when they went back to school, they made their applications. But so substantively, it might be a little, maybe a lighter workload as an intern. Practical is it's not paid. It's an unpaid position. So you would have to be able to, you know, work. But I did always work with the intern as far as whatever their schedule would permit. If they could only put in, you know, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, so that left them time to then go and work somewhere where they were actually earning money, I certainly would always, work around their schedule.
Very good. Excellent. Kevin, looks like we've gotten a number of questions come in. What's the next one that seems like it would be good for our panel here?
This one's for Melanie. Melanie, what's something that you wished you knew or surprised you about the role of a law clerk that you did not know before?
I'll be honest, I didn't know much about what a clerkship was when I started. I knew that it was research and writing and working for a judge, but I didn't do any internships in a courthouse when I was in law school. So there was a lot new to me. I will say that the area of law that my judge hears cases in, mostly she's in tax court, but then also hears foreclosure cases. I do wish I had known more about the specific areas of law that she does, because I did jump right in, and it would have made it a little easier to make that transition and be able to help with the motions faster. There's a lot that you have to jump in with both feet and do right away. So I think that, preparing a little bit more in terms of the substantive areas of law would have helped me be a better clerk at the beginning compared to how I was.
Very good. Very good. So this question was originally directed towards Judge Belgard, but since we have lost Judge Belgard's power, we are going to direct this one at Judge Mainor. Judge Mainor, can you take us through why a law student should pursue a judicial clerkship?
Excuse me one moment, Ryan, if I could.
This is actually Judge Belgard.
There she is.
Oh my goodness.
Can you hear me?
Oh, just in
Perfect timing.
Feels like we called her out of the abyss from nowhere.
Through osmosis.
Very good. So
It was like magic.
you're off the clock here, and we'll put Judge Belgard into the hot seat. So Judge Belgard, can you introduce yourself first, and then we'll ask you this upcoming question.
Sure. So good afternoon, everybody. I apologize for my tardiness and joining sort of not knowing exactly what was said before me, but we've had a large storm come through in this part of South Jersey. So I'm sitting here in the dark speaking to you. So I am the presiding judge of the Civil Division in Burlington County. I came to the bench in 2015. First as the supervising judge of the special civil part, also handling civil cases. Then I worked in family for a while, where I handled children in court cases, which are cases involving, unfortunately, abuse and neglect of children. And then just this past year, I've come back to civil, where I'm now the presiding judge of our civil division in Burlington County. So that's the quick background. Before that, my legal career was that of a litigator. I did civil defense, primarily civil defense litigation, and my schooling background was that I went to Widener University School of Law and earned my law degree there. So that's the quick version.
Very good. So now that we have a good understanding of where you're coming from and what you represent, can you give us an understanding of why a law student should pursue a judicial clerkship?
Sure. Well, having been sort of on the ground as a litigator, and now seeing it from the perspective of a judge, I really think that judicial clerkship experience is just, it's you can't even express it in words, because the judicial clerks really get to see, for lack of a better phrase, how the sausage is made, right? You get to see every day the inner workings of the courts, what the judges are expecting by way of filings and oral argument and presentation before the court. You have the great inside look at what to do and what not to do when you go out into practice. And so I think it really gives you an advantage and an edge having a clerkship, and then after a year of doing that, going out and being able to take this knowledge and these sort of tips and tricks of the trade that you've learned along the way and put them into practice yourself. So it is a great opportunity to see sort of how the magic happens in the courthouse.
Very good. Thank you. So Judge Mainor, I'm going to put you back onto the hot seat. Can you tell us how a clerkship enhances a lawyer's professional career?
Yes, I think it enhances a professional career immensely in a variety of different ways, including some of the ways that I talked about. As attorneys, you come in sometimes blindly because you've learned things and it has come across to you in a vacuum. Although there are people who have worked as interns for various firms or small attorneys' offices, those things, unless those particular firms are allowing the attorneys to become very intimately involved in the transport of documents, going into court and sitting in on actual proceedings. Much of their time is spent in just that firm doing legal research and writing, answering phones, filings, and things of that nature. When you clerk, especially for a New Jersey judiciary, we have I'm very proud to be on the New Jersey bench because the judges are quality people. They're quality attorneys that have ascended to the bench, and they recognize the import of developing quality attorneys. And so, as I indicated, myself and my colleagues generally will try to give a law clerk as much exposure as humanly possible. If you walk into a clerkship not knowing exactly what area of law you want to specialize in, you have the opportunity not only to see proceedings in the division upon which you are clerking, but usually our law clerks do a very good job, and Melanie could probably attest to this, of networking with one another. They usually start chain emails telling them, listen, there's a great homicide trial in criminal, or listen, there's a nice hit and run case in civil that's going on, or you got to go down to family. There's like this big thing happening with like a divorce or something, or a custody case. So you get a chance to learn a lot about all of the different types of law. So if you ever question what type of law you were actually interested in, you will very quickly and easily as a law clerk learn either, nope, I have no desire to practice that type of law, or, oh my gosh, I didn't think I liked that kind of law, and I think now this is what I want to do. In addition to honing in your skills and figuring out where your particular set of interests are, you also just develop the ability to interact with people from all walks of life. Because the divisions are very different, sometimes you have to deal with just attorneys, and in that vein, you get to learn the good attorneys, the bad attorneys, what to do, what not to do. You get to see inexperienced attorneys, very experienced and talented attorneys. You get to learn the difference between people who are just knowledgeable versus people who are just talented as attorneys. So you get to learn all of those nuances and pick up some of the tricks of the trade and the tools. You develop relationships with those other attorneys. You network that way. There are attorneys that you can meet that become fond of you as a law clerk and decide, you know what, I'm going to pass your name on to a particular firm that I think you would be perfect for, or things of that nature. They put in good words for the judges. The judges know different people. Your letter of recommendation from your judge as a law clerk can be either very lackluster depending on your performance there, or it can be stellar and make all the world of difference in terms of applying to different firms. So the skill set, the knowledge, the background, the practical experience, the relationships, the networking, and just the overall exposure, I think are incomparable and immeasurable. And if you see what's been going on with our judiciary, I'm very proud of the New Jersey judiciary because we have had to, in lightning speed, convert from in-person proceedings to virtual proceedings. And the short amount of time that they have had to develop PDFs and processes and switch over to making what Judge Dominguez described as a seamless transition has been miraculous. So I think it's, I don't even think that we don't have enough time during this proceeding to talk about all the benefits of a clerkship for the New Jersey judiciary, but I hope I've covered some of them.
You certainly have, and you've certainly given an understanding of how a network can make a huge difference in a young lawyer's career, and how the ability to be able to see these proceedings and have these experiences makes an influence, and see the way that different lawyers and different attorneys are able to move through their proceedings is going to make a huge influence. Judge Dominguez, I'd like to jump you into this conversation as well. We've seen what they can see and what they can observe and how they can be a part of this experience, but what are you seeing as skills that are being developed on top of the network, on top of the ability to see these different things? How do you see these skills being developed in the clerkship?
I think probably the number 1 and 2, and I don't know which way they would go in, would be research and writing. I mean, certainly the work that law clerks do, I think on a percentage basis, that is the greatest percentage that they do is researching the law and then drafting memos to the judge. And like I said, if there is going to be a written opinion, oftentimes the law clerks will be involved in writing those written opinions as well. So the skills that obviously you learn research in law school, and we hope that you've learned how to write while you're in law school, but certainly those skills will be dramatically increased by a clerkship because that's what you're doing most of the time. And oftentimes you're researching points of law, like I said, in the civil division, because you're dealing with so many subject matters that it may be something that no court has touched in 25 years. That particular issue may not have come up. And everyone's sort of looking at each other going, what is this? I've never heard of this. The first place you go to as a judge is you call your law clerk in. You say, you got to give me some background on this. I've never experienced this. Notwithstanding the wide variety of experience that judges have in their prior life as attorneys, it could be that something just never came up. I've had on a number of occasions where I've had lawyers sitting in my chambers going, Judge, I've just never had to deal with this issue before. And these are attorneys that have practiced for 30 years. So certainly, the law clerk, their research skills will be increased dramatically. And then, they have to convey that information to the judge. We don't necessarily have the time to just take those cases and say, okay, thank you. We need somebody to break it down for us and summarize it for us and then sort of give us how that particular point of law may impact the particular case. So I would say, 1 and 2 is research and writing. Probably following that is some of the things that we've Judge Mainor had already touched on, and is just the operational things that they're doing, sort of how to learn the rules. How do the rules work in the courthouse? We've got a book of rules here, and I could reach it. So these are the court rules in New Jersey. So there's certainly a lot of them, and it helps the law. The law clerks will be dealing with those rules in their particular subject areas, civil, criminal, and family, and their skills on how to sort of maneuver through those rules will certainly be increased. They'll learn not only the black letter rules themselves, but then sort of the practical application of those rules as well. So I would say those 3 things are the ones that sort of stick out the most in my mind.
If I can add to that, Ryan, just the art of effective communication and the art of persuasion. As a law clerk, as an attorney, you write these, 40, 50-page briefs in support of your application, thinking that the judge is going to be overly impressed by all 50 pages of it. As a law clerk, you begin to learn, okay, this is a bunch of fluff, only about 11 pages are what's going to be relevant for the court to consider. And you learn as a law clerk, sometimes less is more. Don't go around in a circle and try to throw everything that you can think of. Don't attempt to manipulate the court by finding one line in a case that you think supports your position that has absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand. It just sounded good with that sentence. Because as a law clerk, you understand that I have to go back now and read this case. And it had absolutely nothing to do with the issue that I was research for the judge. It only had that one beautiful flowery line. And so as a law clerk, you get to learn how to persuasively use the cases and how to persuade the judge in the direction of your position. You also get to learn how to write neutrally because you're not writing as an adversary. You're actually learning how to take each side of those adversarial positions and actually sift out what the law says and what's actually going to be more persuasive and support the court in making its decision. And I don't think that's something you necessarily get without a clerkship.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. So we have about 15 minutes left in this conversation. I do want to leave a little bit of time at the end for at least a couple of questions. So I'm going to jump to our next question here. And this is going to be directed at Judge Mainor. And this might be why everybody's here, because they want to look for this potential law clerkship. They want to know what the application process is like and how intimidated they should be by this whole process. So Judge Mainor, can you tell us a little bit if you have any tips for the application interview process that these potential clerks will go through?
Yes. First, Judge Dominguez is absolutely correct. When I was in civil and criminal, a person who interned for me would certainly have a leg up if they did well during the internship, because they were shadowing my law clerk. I got to silently observe them work under my law clerk and with my law clerk, and shine in and show some of the skills that you don't get in a 15-20-minute interview. So that's certainly an opportunity. Although you don't get paid for the internship, it's certainly an opportunity for you to shine for that prospective judge. And even there are some interns that I've had that didn't end up clerking for me because I knew either they didn't want to work in that particular field or they wanted to be in a different division. I was able to pass that along to a judge that I knew was in a division that they chose to clerk for. And so that's a benefit. In terms of presenting yourself to the judge, you want to present yourself in the best lighting. Your resume should certainly be accurate. It should be thorough. It should be checked without errors, as well as your cover letter. Your cover letter does not need to be verbose, but it does need to show the best things that you want the court to know about you and something that you think might set yourself apart from the other applicants that are filing with the courts as well. Your interview, while I know the interview can be intimidating, you've got this. You're prepared for it. You've been who you are all of your life. If you've been paying attention in school and you've been exercising the opportunity, taking advantage of the opportunities that you've had prior to that interview, then just come out with your best light. Answer the questions as best you can. Be direct. Make sure that you make eye contact. Make sure that you show your personality. Make sure that you show your intelligence. And, you know, if you can throw a couple of things in there about what you've learned or some research that you've done, that's always helpful as well. But you want to make sure that it's tailored to the judge that you're interviewing for. If you're interviewing for someone who's in the family division, talk about the skill sets that you think you have that are transferable and useful to that particular judge. Just be open, be honest, you know, put your best foot forward. Because you only have a few minutes. And usually, I don't know about Judge Dominguez, but usually when I have an interview, I can tell within the first 10 minutes or so if it's someone that's going to work well with our chambers, because more so than just being intelligent and bright, it also has to be a good fit, because that person's going to have to work with your clerk. They're going to have to work with your secretary. And so they should be bright. They should be personable. They should be professional, because you're going to have to come in contact with attorneys and other professionals around the building. And we want someone that's going to represent us, because when you pick up that phone and call on behalf of Judge Mainor, you are not Melanie Franco. You are Judge Mainor's law clerk. And so you have to remember that those are the types of things that they're going to be looking for.
Absolutely. Judge Belgard, I want to get you in on this conversation, and I want you to tell us a little bit about the skills, abilities, knowledge, coursework, or experiences that you might be looking for when you're looking at a potential law clerk applicant.
So, well, I would really echo what Judge Mainor said about, first of all, being yourself. You know, I think by the time the applicant gets to us, you know, we're looking at transcripts, we're looking at writing samples. We have a really good understanding of, you know, how this applicant has done through the law school process. The interview, I think, is an opportunity for us to really to see how that person shines, not only with us, but with our staff as well. So I always have folks that are interviewing meet with my secretary and my law clerk sort of on the way in. So I think it's important that, as Judge Mainor was saying, that there's a rapport there, because if you find that you have applicants that have a willingness to learn, you know, the subject matter and the research and the writing, those can all be crafted and worked on through the process, I think. as long as you know that this is going to be a person that will work and have the sort of chemistry that you need in your chambers. So I really think that willingness to learn and that ability to get along with people is just as important as sort of what coursework you took or what your research and writing skills are, because we can really see those things on paper. I think, again, the interview process is more an opportunity to show some of yourself. And I also think it's really important for applicants to make sure that they feel like they have a good rapport with the judge and the judge's staff as well. So, take that opportunity to ask meaningful questions. Make sure it's going to work for you as well. If you really think, I really want to clerk with a family judge, and you're interviewing with a civil judge, and you're just not sure, and after the interview process, you've asked some questions about what you'll be exposed to in that division and the like, and it just doesn't feel like it fits. That's okay, but that's your opportunity also to learn more and to feel or assess whether it's the right fit for you as well. So those are sort of the highlights that I would point out. Also, I don't think that this probably even needs to be mentioned, but I'm going to say it just because I've seen it once or twice, that make sure you're showing up to the interview properly attired. You're lawyers now. You're going to be out in this professional world. Make sure you are dressed professionally and that you look the part, because that's really going to, I think, stand out as well. If you didn't take the time and effort to really pull yourself together for the interview, the judge and the judge's staff are going to notice that. So those are some of my big tips. Make sure you have your best writing sample. Don't just kind of throw something at the judge that you think will pass muster. Put, like Judge Mainor said, put your best foot forward, because those are the things this is your time to shine.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Judge Belgard. Melanie, can you give us a brief understanding of what your perspective on that interview and application process might have looked like, and what can a candidate expect as they're going through it?
Sure. I did a lot of prep prior to the interviews. My school, the Career Development Office, allowed us to do practice interviews, which was very helpful. It is important to be yourself. You don't want to have these prepared answers that sound like you're just saying them to anyone, but you do want to know somewhat how to answer certain questions that are bound to come up. Like, why do you want to be a clerk? Or why do you want to be in this office in particular? And I think it is important to really think about that and, figure out a way that makes it unique with each judge. You want to be genuine, but also you want to show that you've done your research and that you're prepared for this particular office and chambers. And, I will say, it's important to triple check everything that you put in your application. No matter how many times you look over your resume, there's going to be some sort of mistake. There's going to be a period out of place, or you use the wrong tense. So just make sure you look over all of your documents. And I would say, try practicing the interview with a friend or a family member the day before. Just have them ask you questions and see how you would answer them. It's good to practice so that you don't come out stumbling. It can be nerve-wracking. Judges are very intimidating, no matter how nice they are, just because you know how much they've accomplished to get to that position. And so you just want to make sure that you're ready to, show who you are and show that you will be the right fit, because this is someone that you'll be working very closely with for the first year of your new career as a lawyer. So it's very important to make sure that you find the best fit. So it's okay to admit to yourself that maybe, a certain judge isn't the one that you want to clerk for. It's okay to think that, but just make sure that you are as open to all the opportunities as possible, because you will get the most out of the clerkship that you put into it.
Very good. And Judge Dominguez, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of perspective on when you're interviewing a candidate or when you're looking through their applications, what is a way that a candidate can stand out for the good part, and what is a way that a candidate will stand out the bad way?
Sure. I think everything that all the panelists have said or sort of brings out the good points. I know when I'm interviewing someone, I'm not necessarily focusing on their grades and the courses that they've already taken. I think Judge Mainor and Judge Belgard have also expressed that we've already seen that. We've seen the paper. We already have that perspective. We know those things. When I'm interviewing someone, I'm just having a conversation with them. I'm talking to them because I'm trying to get a feel for how do they interact professionally with people? How are they going to interact with the attorneys? And Judge Mainor had pointed this out, that when you as the law clerk present yourself, you're representing us. And so we want to make sure that you can properly represent us. So, on paper, I would say just the things that make any job, applicant outstanding. Certainly good grades, because of the amount of writing that a law clerk does. Some experience writing, I think, is something that normally will jump out at me. It doesn't necessarily have to be law journal. I think a lot of people just focus on law journal, but if there were other activities that you were involved with which demonstrate that you had to communicate with people specifically through writing, that is certainly something that I'll look for. Involvement in other things while you're in law school, I think, is something that always stands out in my mind, particularly because as a law clerk, you be extraordinarily organized. If you are not organized, you are not going to do well at this job. And so if I see on your paper that in addition to law school, you were working as well, while you were going to school, or maybe you were taking care of a child as you were trying to go to school. If you were doing multiple things at once, that generally takes some sort of organizational skill. So that would jump out at me, something where I can see that they're handling multiple tasks, at the same time, because it's going to happen as a law clerk. You're going to just have to be very well organized, not only for yourself, but also for the judge, to make sure that the judge is organized. So those, I think those are the things that generally would stand out. I don't think I've ever seen anything where anything that somebody would put on their resume that I would say, gee, that's bad, because I don't think if it was something that would harm the candidate that they would necessarily put it on their resume or any other their documents. I mean, generally speaking, there is a background check process that law clerks have to go through here in New Jersey. So certainly, if there is something in your background that might be a problem, I think that's going to be brought to the attention of somebody at some point, which may disqualify you as a law clerk. But if I could just add also to something that some of the other judges, as well as Melanie, had said. Again, don't be surprised if while you're interviewing, the judge is not talking about the things on paper, the grades and your activities. We're trying to get a feel for you as a person and as a professional. Two other things just to keep in mind briefly, and Melanie had touched on this, is I believe it was Melanie had touched on just an interest in the subject matter. If you're interviewing with a judge that sits in the family division, showing some sort of interest in that subject matter is certainly helpful. But at the same time, and this might sort of contradict, understand here in New Jersey, judges do get moved to different divisions. And I've had, on at least one occasion, while I was interviewing a law clerk sitting in the civil division, I knew that I was going to be moved to a different division, or there was a chance that I was going to be moved to a different division. So I had to explain to the law clerk, understand, I might be here today, but tomorrow I might be in a different part of the building handling a subject matter that is completely different than what we're doing right now. So an interest in the subject matter, yes, is helpful, but some flexibility is also helpful, because there's often times where the judges just don't know that they will be moved. Now, some judges certainly have been in their particular divisions for extended period of time, and it's unlikely that they're going to change divisions, but it is a possibility that the judge would switch divisions.
Good, very good. So knowing that we are a little bit over time, I'm going to jump right to the end here and tell you a little bit about how you can apply for a clerkship for us here in New Jersey. So for the 2020-2021 court term law clerk vacancies, there are still some that are available to you. So if you're interested in a 2021 court term, there are a limited number of positions available. Go to njcourts.gov and take a look at the law clerk recruitment page to access the web-based portal, and you can still apply for clerkships that would start in August of 2020. Now, if you're looking for a 2021-22 court term, that application process started on Monday. So you can go and find the notice of vacancy that has been posted as of Monday, June 1st at njcourts.gov, and you can go again to the law clerk web-based portal. On June 15th, applications for the clerkships are going to be accepted for 2021-22, and those will be through that portal again. That's when they're going to be due and starting to be reviewed. On June 22 of 2020, justices and judges will begin contacting candidates for interviews and job offers. Now, I've done 3 of these now, and every single one of them has had at least one judge mention that they like to get their judge or their clerk in early, because when they see talent, they want to snap that talent up and make sure that they have the best possible candidate in their position. So do not hesitate to get this position or get this up and running for yourself and apply and put your best foot forward. As pretty much all of our judges and as well as Melanie have mentioned, you being honest and you putting your best foot forward and presenting yourself the way that you are is going to be one of your best tactics here in getting one of these positions. So if you are interested, make sure that you're prepared to have that conversation, because no one's going to advocate for you as well as you are going to be able to. You are the expert at your experience, and you are the expert at what you bring to any of these clerkships. In closing, just wanted to make sure that if you have any questions, you can contact Human Resources at lawclerkfaq@njcourts.gov. And if you need more information, again, all of that information can be found on the Law Clerk recruitment site at njcourts.gov. Again, my name has been Ryan Vicinage. I've been the Chief of Organizational Development and Training, and hopefully will continue to be after this conversation. And I thank you for joining us for today's webinar. To our esteemed colleagues here, Judge Dominguez, Judge Mainor, and Judge Belgard, thank you very much for your time. Melanie, thank you very much for making time for us as well to share your experience. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and good luck on your applications.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.